everybody, and today we are doing another chapter of The Hatchet. Yep, so I guess let's start reading. Alright. Well, we didn't finish off that chapter, I don't think. Yeah, we did. Alright. Chapter 2. For a time that he could not understand, Brian could do nothing, even after his mind began working. And he could see what had happened. He could do nothing. It was as if his arms and hands were lead. Then he looked for ways, for it not to have happened. Be asleep. His mind screamed at the pilot, just be asleep. And your eyes will open now, and your hands will take the controls, and your feet will move the pedals. But it did not happen. The pilot did not move, except that his head rolled on his neck impossibly loose. As the plane hit a small bit of turbulence, the plane was still flying. Seconds passed. Nearly a minute. The plane flew on as if nothing had happened. And he had to do something, but did not know what. Help. He had to help. He screeched with one hand towards the pilot, saw that his fingers were trembling, touched the pilot on the chest. He did not know what to do. He knew there were procedures, what you could do with your mouth to mouth on victims of heart attacks and push their chest, CPR. But he did not know how to do it. And in any case, could not do it. With the pilot who's sitting up in a seat and still strapped in with his seat belt. So he touched the pilot with the tips of his finger, touched him on the chest, couldn't feel nothing, no heartbeat, no rise or fall of breathing, which meant the pilot was almost certainly dead. Please, Brian said, please, but did not know what or who to ask. Please. The plane launched again, hit more turbulence, and Brian felt his nose drop. It did not dive, but the nose went slightly down to an angle increased. The speed, and he knew that the angle is slight angle down. He would multiply, fly into trees. He could not see them ahead on the horizon, where before he could see only the sky. He had had to fly it somehow. Had to fly the plane. He had to help himself. The pilot was gone beyond anything he could do. He had to try and fly the plane. He turned back in the seat, facing the front, and put his hands, still trembling, on the control wheel. His foot gently on the rotor pedals. He pulled back on a stick to raise the plane. He knew that from reading. You always pulled back on the wheel. He gave it a tug, and it slid back towards him. Too easily, the plane, with the increased speed from the tilt, swooped eagerly up and dove Brian's stomach down. He pushed the wheel back in, went too far. This time, the plane's nose went below the horizon, and the engine speed increased with a shallow dive. Too much. He pulled back again, more gently. This time, and nose floated up again, too far, but not as violently as before, and down a bit too much, and up again as before, down a bit too much, and up again very easily, and he, in the front of the engine, cowling settled. When he had it aimed at the horizon, and it seemed to be steady, he held in the wheel where it was, let out his breath, which he had been holding all this time, and tried to think what to do next. It was a clear blue sky day with fluffy bits of cloud here and there, and he looked out the window for a movement, hoping to see something, a town or village, but there was nothing, just the green of the trees, endless green, and lakes scattered more and then more thickly as the plane flew where he was flying, but did not know. Had no idea where he was going. He looked at the dashboard of the plane, studied the dials, and hoped to get some help to find a compass. But it was all so confusing, a jumble of numbers and lights, one lighted display in the top center. The dashboard said the number 342. Another next to it, it said 22. Down breath. What were dials with lines that seemed to indicate what winds were doing? Tipping or moving. and one dial with a needle pointing to the number 70, which he only thought might be the altimeter, a device that told him his height above the ground or sea level, where he had read something about altimeters, but he couldn't remember what or where or anything about them. Slightly to the left and below altimeter, he saw a small regulator panel with a lighted dial and two knobs. His eyes had passed it over 2 or 3 times before he saw what was written in tiny letters on top of the panel. Transmitter 221. He stamped in the metal, and he hit him finally, and this was the radio. The radio, of course. He had to use the radio. When the pilot had been hit that way, he couldn't bring himself to say that the pilot was dead. Couldn't think it. He had been trying to use the radio. Brian looked at the pilot. The headset was still on. His head turned sideways from a bit of the jamming back into the seat, and the microphone switch was clipped to his belt. Brian had to get the headset from the pilot, had to reach over and get the headset from the pilot, or he would not be able to use the radio to call for help. He had to reach over. His hands began trembling again. He did not want to touch the pilot, did not want to reach for him, but he had to. He had to get the radio. He lifted his hands from the wheel just slightly. He held them, waiting to see what would happen. The plane flew on normally, smoothly. All right, he thought. Now, to do this thing. He turned and reached for the headset, slid it from the pilot, had one eye on the plane, waiting for it to drive. All right, guys. I'm gonna end this here. Well, this was almost the second chapter. I'm gonna read the rest of this chapter next episode, and then some of the third chapter. Okay. Bye!